The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, August the 27th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. And opening with the front page, Trump's actions may hit wallets. Canada, Iran, beef plants impacting the United States economy. Rachel Barber of USA Today writes, in a matter of days, President Donald Trump's administration reignited a trade war with Canada, pledged to bring about an economic D-Day for Iran, and spooked representatives from the U.S. cattle industry with its plans to import 300,000 metric tons of beef. Shikha Jain, a Simon Kucher partner and lead of the consumer sector for North America, said, these decisions mean U.S. consumers are likely going to pay more for items imported from Canada and face higher costs at the gas pump. They could, however, sorry, your fingers don't work. They could, however, see lower beef prices given the proposed imports, although details of that plan are still unclear. As many Americans continue battling rising costs, here's a look at these new economic developments and what they mean for your wallet. Why is there a Canadian trade war? The Trump administration first announced new tariffs on an estimated 5% of Canadian imports on July 20 and said that they were scheduled to take effect on August 19. But in an August 18th statement, Trump paused their implementation for 3 days as trade talks between the two nations continued. Late last week, those negotiations fell apart. The Trump administration imposed 50% tariffs on an estimated $20 billion worth of Canadian imports, and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced dollar-for-dollar retaliatory counter tariffs scheduled to take effect September 8th. In an August 22 news conference, Carney said the United States' proposed new terms were uneconomic, unfair, and undermined the net benefits for Canada. In short, they asked too much and they offered too little, Carney said. United States Trade Representative Jameson Greer told Fox News, August 22, the U.S. would respond to Canadian retaliation. We don't have new talks planned with the Canadians, Greer said. We've said enough. We're taking countermeasures. On August 24, Trump further escalated the trade war by announcing the United States, starting January 1, is going to double tariffs on all cars, trucks, and automotive parts and steel imported from Canada, bringing that rate to 50%. So what do tariffs on Canadian imports mean for our prices? Excuse me. The U.S. tariffs on Canadian imports are expected to primarily impact goods flowing into the U.S. from Canada's auto, alcohol, and dairy industries, while oil, natural gas, critical minerals, and a few other Canadian products remain exempt. In July, the White House published a long list of goods that would be affected. It ranged from cameras and hockey equipment to silver and even some building materials. Jane listed a few Canadian products sold directly to consumers that are likely going to experience price increases, including alcohol, candles, perfume, clothing, jewelry, and even some food products. It doesn't mean that your entire grocery bill is going up by 50%, but it does mean that a lot of your select items are going to go up by a decent amount, Jane said, because many U.S. home builders have historically sourced material from Canada. Excuse me. She said 50% tariffs on things like plywood and lumber may make the already difficult task of building new homes even more expensive. New builds will go up in price, and then homeowners will try to renovate their homes. But in general, they're going to find that even renovation projects are going to go up in price. If Trump follows through with his plans to raise tariffs on auto-related Canadian imports to 50%, Jane said Americans are likely going to pay more for cars because several major automakers rely on assembly plants in Canada before importing them to the United States to sell to American consumers. The total cost of manufacturing the car goes up, and a lot of that gets passed on to the consumer. People think, oh, I'm going to buy GM, but actually that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be cheaper. So what is the impact of retaliation? Carney said Canada's retaliatory counter tariffs on American goods will be concentrated in sectors including steel, dairy, appliances, agricultural equipment, pulp, paper, and electronics. Jane said U.S. producers who regularly export products to Canada are likely going to face lower demand and have to rethink their supply chains to serve other countries or more U.S. consumers. She added that people sometimes forget U.S. businesses often import materials from Canada, like steel, and use them to make products that are then exported back. All of that gets disrupted and might get hit with double tariffs, Jane said. In his August 22nd news conference, Carney also appeared to threaten the possibility that Canada could halt its energy exports to the United States. Canada fuels American growth, supplying 99% of their natural gas imports, 85% of their electricity imports, 60% of their crude oil, Carney said. I don't think they want us to stop sending any of that energy. At a time when American consumers are already paying more at the gas pump due to oil disruptions stemming from the U.S.-Iran war, Jane said the U.S. should make sure not to exacerbate any of those situations. It could be a credible threat, but the question is always how, where will Canada sell this? She added, supply chains were set up to transfer all of that energy to the U.S. So what does economic D-Day for Iran mean for U.S. consumers? With hopes of a ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran tabled, Trump, on August 22, posted a map to Truth Social labeling the Strait of Hormuz a U.S. territory. The next day, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent vowed the U.S. would begin the single greatest financial offensive ever marshaled against an adversary, in a piece published in the Financial Times. In an August 24 news conference, Bessent said the U.S. Treasury had begun Operation Economic Outcast and that its Office of Foreign Assets Control is sanctioning more than 60 entities, individuals, and vessels that enable the Iranian regime to procure illicit nuclear and missile technology, conduct cyber operations, and generate oil revenue. He said representatives from the U.S. and identified countries are meeting to discuss timelines to shut down those activities. Bessent added that any entity that facilitates money laundering on Iran's behalf will be removed from the U.S. dollar system. We are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe, Bessent said. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone. In response to his earlier promise of an economic D-Day, Mohsen Rezai, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, threatened to halt all oil exports. If the economic war continues, not a single drop of oil will be exported, neither through the Strait of Hormuz nor from anywhere in the Persian Gulf, Rezai wrote in an August 23rd X post. Iran will regard any country's participation in or support for America's economic war against the Iranian people an act of war. Because of the sanctions, and once our reserves run out, we don't know what could happen there, Jane said. Fuel prices have roughly gone up 30% since the start of the war, and that might just continue to escalate. So finally, will Trump's plans to import beef bring down U.S. prices? Well, other than the gas pump, one of the biggest financial pain points for Americans is the grocery store. In recent months, consumers have noticed they are paying significantly more for beef. The U.S. cattle supply remains at a multi-decade low after years of drought and the spread of a parasitic New World screwworm near the Mexican border, which drove prices higher. In July, ground beef prices were up 9% over the year, representing a much steeper increase than the 3.4% rise in costs estimated for all items, including, according to the Labor Department data. In response, Trump announced on August 21 that he had made a 90-day deal for foreign ground beef exporters to sell their products at a 25% discount in exchange for not paying U.S. out-of-quota tariffs. This deal will reduce prices for Americans while giving space for our great American beef herd to grow again, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Now, in theory, increased supply met with unchanged U.S. demand could lead to lower ground beef prices. However, it was not immediately clear which country Trump had struck a deal with. The deal was met with backlash from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, which said it was not the way to rebuild the American cattle herd. And Senator Tim Sheeny, a Republican from Montana, who said he advised Trump against this course of action. American ranchers have been struggling against the packer monopoly for decades, and this will further harm them, most of whom are MAGA Republicans, Sheehy said in the next post. This action is going to make it more difficult for American ranchers to rebuild the herd and bring down prices. A White House official told USA Today the Trump administration plans to work with ranchers to expand domestic beef production over the long run, and added that the president will formalize the import deal with an executive order in the coming weeks.
Fight's not over on mail vote, states vow, from Sarah D. Wire of USA Today. Multiple states banded together and filed a new challenge to the mail-in ballot restrictions being implemented by the Trump administration. The suit was filed August 26th. The fight's not over, Nevada Secretary of State Cisco Aguilar told USA Today. Aguilar, who also leads the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, spoke about the issue one day after the U.S. Supreme Court removed a block on the U.S. Postal Service writing rules to put the plan into place. A second separate hold preventing the Postal Service from moving forward is already in place nationwide. In the meantime, news of the court's decision has created new uncertainties for voters that state and local election officials must grapple with weeks before Election Day. Despite any perception, the ruling has no bearing currently on electoral processes for mail-in voting for individuals for the 2026 election. Maryland State Administrator of Elections Jared DeMarninis said, "It's important that we tell voters mail-in voting is legal. The processes have not been altered or changed, and it is a safe, convenient, verified method of voting. That is the truth. That remains the reality of the situation here." The Supreme Court's decision said a lower court moved too soon when it partly paused President Trump's executive order cracking down on mail-in ballots. It also said states couldn't challenge rules that have not yet affected them. States had challenged the executive order, saying the Constitution gives them authority over election administration, not the executive branch. The Postal Service finalized those rules August 21st, despite the lower court's order. The Supreme Court said, hey, Your original challenge was a little too early because you really didn't know what the implications were going to be. So now that you do know, go and fight in courts over the actual existence of the rule, according to Aguilar. The rules, which were set to be formally published August 26, detail how the Postal Service would implement the executive order Trump signed in March that seeks to give the agency a say over when and how ballots are mailed and which ballots are returned to local election officials.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15.
Continuing, the High Court did not rule on whether the restrictions on mailed ballots in the order were legal or could be used in this year's midterms. The Supreme Court ruling was a major win for the security of American elections. Radical Democrats continue to oppose common sense measures that protect the security of mail-in ballots and ensure only Americans are electing American leaders, White House spokeswoman Lauren Biss told USA Today in a statement. The Trump administration will continue to lawfully enact the agenda President Trump was elected on, which includes the safety and security of our elections. The fight over what rules govern absentee ballots could be crucial for the 2026 midterms, which will determine which party controls Congress. Democrats need to flip a handful of seats in the House and Senate to gain control. Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold stressed that voters should know the Supreme Court's move was procedural, not final. We are going to continue to fight this as the executive order is implemented. We believe we are on the right side of the law, the Constitution, and history, Griswold told USA Today. Voting by mail has decreased since its peak during the COVID pandemic. Still, nearly 30% of voters cast an absentee ballot in the 2024 election. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to vote by mail, according to the MIT Election Data and Science Lab. The point is to undermine public faith in our elections by raising the specter of chaos and distrust that will get people to stay home on Election Day, said Sean Morales Doyle, director of the Brennan Center's Voting Rights and Elections program. The center is part of the legal team in a separate lawsuit that still blocks the Postal Service from moving forward. The Postal Service did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Multiple secretaries of state told USA Today they fear the court's order just over 70 days before the election will sow confusion among voters about whether the Postal Service will get to decide which absentee ballots to deliver. Maine election officials are moving forward as if nothing will change, Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows said. What the Supreme Court did, as egregious as the decision is, changes nothing for election officials who are already making plans for November to ensure that every eligible American has the ability to cast their ballot and know that their vote will be counted fairly, she told USA Today. We are not going to change any processes or procedures at the President or Supreme Court's whims. We will not make any changes unless we are legally required to do so. Griswold, Colorado's Secretary of State, says she is concerned people will catch only bits of what is happening and be confused. I do think that this back and forth in lawsuits and a court decision so close to the election is troublesome for various reasons, she said. Having this uncertainty is hard. We are way too close to the election. I do think it can be confusing for American voters. There isn't much time left for the cases to be resolved or for the new Postal Service rule to practically be put in place, the state officials said. Under federal law, ballots must be sent by mail to military and overseas voters the week of September 14th to ensure they can be returned on time. 20 states send mail-in ballots to voters 45 days or more before an election, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. For example, North Carolina begins sending ballots out the first week of September. The Postal Service's new rule requires state and local election officials to submit voters' names and addresses to the service through a new portal, and only voters whose information is submitted will be allowed to receive mail-in ballots, which will be sent in envelopes with special federal barcodes. Also under the rule, the Postal Service would not collect or record party affiliation and would not inspect ballot contents. Postal workers would not be authorized to open sealed mail. Aguilar said even if the lawsuits fail, he doesn't believe the Postal Service could enforce the rule in the midterm elections. I don't think there is 1 ounce of opportunity that the post office can put this database together in less than 70 days, he said. To ask them to build a massive database that requires a lot of technology and a lot of thought in a short period of time will drive them to complete failure. To address possible voter confusion, some election officials are urging voters to use ballot drop boxes rather than the mail to ensure their ballots are counted. But more than 24 states don't allow ballot drop boxes or have restrictions on them. In many of those states, voters who don't want to put ballots in the mail can opt to drop off absentee ballots in person at local election offices. 11 states either explicitly prohibit drop boxes in statute or list approved methods of ballot return that do not include drop boxes, according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. They are Arkansas, Indiana, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and West Virginia. 6 states, Idaho, Kansas, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Wyoming, are not explicit about drop boxes in statute and have some jurisdictions that use them. Alabama, Alaska, Montana, and New Hampshire do not have an applicable statute and do not use drop boxes according to the state legislature's conference. The other 29 states and the District of Columbia permit drop boxes by law.
Rags to rhinestones and into our hearts. America's Queen of Country leaves a legacy of love, light, and music. Deverick Turner and Melissa Ruggieri of USA Today Network penned the following. Dolly Parton, Queen of Country, had a personality as bold as her signature blonde coif and rhinestone-encrusted outfits. The beloved singer, who died Tuesday, August the 25th at age 80, is being remembered by the music world, Hollywood, and millions of fans across the country, as well as in her home state of Tennessee. She had been battling cancer, her representative confirmed to USA Today. In a statement announcing the previously undisclosed diagnosis, her representatives reflected on the country icon's legacy and shared details about her final days. Our beloved Dolly Parton spent her life and career bringing joy, laughter, hope, and integrity into everything she touched. Her unmatched generosity reached the lives of countless people whom she would never meet. Yet she was always there to offer a helping hand, whether it be the hundreds of millions of books donated through her invaluable imagination library or funding research that helped create a life-saving vaccine used around the world. Dolly's unconditional love for all people was the guiding force for her lasting impact. After bravely facing a brief battle with cancer, Dolly departed her earthly life today at the Vanderbilt Ingram Cancer Center, surrounded by loved ones. Her death was announced in a video message from her family on her social media pages. This video announcement is something Dolly asked of me years ago, before I fully absorbed it as a future reality, Brian Seaver, Parton's nephew, said in the video. As her head of security for more than 2 decades, a role my father Larry held before me, I have imagined the heaviness of this moment, but haven't truly felt it until now. It is an honor that is mixed with absolute pride and great sadness. Dolly has lived in the light and is in the arms of Jesus, surely met by her husband Carl, her parents, and countless others who have watched her and longed for her to meet them in the heavens. Throughout her 60-year career, Parton painted her twang-laced soprano voice on classics such as Jolene, I Will Always Love You, 9 to 5, and Coat of Many Colors. Her 49 studio albums earned 25 #1 hits on Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart, the most of any female country artist, and spanned every decade from Joshua in 1971 to Tyrant with Beyoncé in 2024. In addition to a legendary music career during which he earned 11 Grammy Awards, including a Lifetime Achievement recognition. Parton starred or made cameo appearances in more than 20 films, including her 1980 debut, 9 to 5, with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas with Burt Reynolds, 1982, and Steel Magnolias with Sally Field and Shirley MacLaine in 1989. She never saw a door she could not open, and the doors she opened and made and changed history, Seaver said. My family and I have shared a lifetime of beautiful memories with Dolly, but so have you. She has always been on your television, your record player, your CD, and your phone playlist, becoming an extended part of your family, whether you liked it or not. Seaver added that Parton's requested to be laid at rest in a beautiful bed of plush cotton, because after a life of wearing heavy rhinestones, she finally deserves to be comfortable and have some rest. Rest in peace, Aunt Dolly, Aunt Granny, Gigi. May God bless Dolly Parton, and may God bless you all. She will always love you. A private memorial service will be held for immediate family, according to Parton's representative. Fans who would like to pay tribute are encouraged to tag at Dolly Parton on socials or leave a message at dollyparton.com. In lieu of flowers, the family asked for donations to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library at imaginationlibrary.com. Parton's influence extended beyond her celebrity. Noted philanthropist, she donated millions for college scholarships through her Dollywood Foundation, established the Imagination Library, and provided $1 million for the research that helped create the Moderna vaccine for COVID during the 2020 global pandemic. After Hurricane Helene caused devastating floods in her native East Tennessee in 2024, she donated $1 million to help flood victims. Parton, whose creative mind never quieted, was also dreamer-in-chief of her Dollywood theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which she opened in 1986 and consistently supplied with her creative vision. I would never retire. I'll just hopefully drop dead in the middle of a song on stage someday. Hopefully one I've written, Parton told USA Today in a 2023 interview to promote her album, Rockstar. She crafted her final album with an array of music stars, including Paul McCartney, Stevie Nicks, Sting, goddaughter Miley Cyrus. After her induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2022, an honor she initially declined before graciously accepting. Amid her philanthropic efforts, Parton's Imagination Library was one of her proudest. Each month, the book gifting program mails free books to children from birth to age 5, regardless of family income. Though Parton had no children, she was a mother figure to children around the world. The free program has given nearly 200 million books to children worldwide since its launch in 1995. Parton was named the 2025 recipient of the Jean Hersholt Herman Humanitarian Award, an honorary Oscar from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Governor's Award. I try to do as much good as I can in the area that I have been confined to, and if I'm a light, I hope so, because I ask God to let me shine. Let me do and say things that would be uplifting, Parton told Knox News in 2023. Her professional accolades throughout her career included not only Grammys, but an Emmy Award in 2021 for Dolly Parton's Christmas on the Square, a pair of Academy Award nominations, a Tony nomination, 13 Academy of Country Music Awards, and 10 Country Music Awards. She also received the Kennedy Center Honor in 2006, the National Medal of Arts in 2005, and has 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Her solo star from 1984, an additional star for 2019, when she was honored with Linda Ronstadt and Emmylou Harris for their award-winning 1987 album, Trio, a reunion of the threesome. Trio number 2 arrived in 1999. You always know when it's the right time, when you listen close to your heart, she said in an interview for the release of the complete Trio collection in 2016. Timing is everything. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30.
No partisan debate. Icon's death unites both sides of the political aisle. From Emily R. Condon of USA Today. In modern political discourse, it's unusual for Republicans and Democrats to wholeheartedly back a bipartisan cause, and it's particularly out of the ordinary for President Trump and Republican House Leader Johnson to align philosophically on a single day with their Democratic political rivals, former Presidents Joe Biden and Barack Obama, former Vice President Kamala Harris, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The President and Taylor Swift have even found common ground. Remember when Trump posted in May of last year? Has anyone noticed that since I said, hey, Taylor Swift, she's no longer hot? But that's the rare alchemy the news of Dolly Parton's death on August 25th has created. It has brought high-profile Republican and Democratic leaders from across the country and even global leaders together to mourn the loss of an American legend. To lose her is like losing a member of the family, Trump said on a radio show on August 26th. A day after he ordered U.S. flags to be lowered in her memory. Dolly was the most popular global figure among American adults in a March 2026 survey by the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, and YouGov. 70% of respondents had a favorable opinion of Parton in the poll, and Obama got a 50% favorable rating. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, 39%, and former President George W. Bush, 37%, and Trump, 36%. The main takeaway of the survey? Parton topped the favorability rankings in a survey of well-known figures, dominated by politicians and business leaders. Even the British royal family joined in with the bipartisan American rush, posting that they'll always love Dolly, accompanied by a video of the British Royal Guard playing her 1980 hit 9 to 5. Now, here's a look at Democrats and Republicans and the major figures sharing remembrances of Parton. And the list of political figures expresses condolences in marking Parton's death as the loss of an American icon. The list is growing. Here's what a handful of the leaders had to say. First, President Trump. Very sad to report that Dolly Parton, one of the greatest country singers and far beyond ever, has just passed away. Former President Barack Obama. It's hard to imagine many people having a bigger impact on Dolly Parton. Born in a one-room cabin, she earned 11 Grammys and an Emmy and built a business empire, helped millions of kids to learn, read, and write, and as if that wasn't enough, helped accelerate the research that led to the Moderna COVID vaccine. What a life. Former President George W. Bush. Laura and I, along with thousands of her fans, mourn the passing of Dolly Parton. We loved her music and her style. Former President Joe Biden. Simply put, Dolly Parton was an American original. She was an inspiration to millions. She was a relentless advocate for women and for equality. Representative Nancy Pelosi. Dolly Parton was a singular American icon whose extraordinary voice, joyful spirit, and generous heart brought light to millions and made America kinder and more helpful. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Dolly Parton did all the good she could for all the people she could, for as long as she ever could. From her legendary songwriting to the Imagination Library, which sent 1 million books a month to children across the country. Representative Mike Johnson. America has lost a true national treasure. Dolly Parton's unmistakable voice, joyful spirit, and remarkable generosity touched millions of Americans and many others around the world. From Senator Chuck Schumer. Dolly Parton was loved in every corner of our nation. All of America is mourning this monumental loss. We love you, Dolly. Former President Bill Clinton. Dolly Parton was one of a kind, a great songwriter and performer who told the stories of everyday Americans with honesty, humility, and heart. Former Vice President Kamala Harris. Dolly Parton was a true American icon. First introduced to the world as a little girl from up in East Tennessee, she became a global superstar. Her career accolades included 11 Grammy Awards, an Emmy, an honorary Oscar, and my favorite, more than 300 million books sent to millions of children around the world through her Imagination Library. Martin Luther King III, son of Martin Luther King Jr. Dolly Parton embodied the beloved community. She was a creative visionary, steadfast philanthropist, and proud ally to the LGBTQ community who spent her life making people feel welcome and loved. Second Lady Usha Vance, wife of Republican Vice President J.D. Vance. As four-time subscribers to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library and lifelong fans of her music, our family knows that Dolly Parton loved a good story. From Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, Dolly spent her whole life showing us what it meant to lead with love. Lauren and I are so grateful to have known her. From Senator Susan Collins, saddened to learn the passing of American icon Dolly Parton. Through the Dollywood Foundation and her Global Imagination Library, Dolly gave free books to children around the world, sparking a lifelong love of reading. Senator Tom Cotton of Dolly Parton's legacy was more than just music. She left a profound impact on Arkansas children through her Imagination Library. May she rest in peace. And finally, from Ivanka Trump, one of President Trump's daughters. A couple years ago, on Lex Freedom podcast, I cited a piece of wisdom from Dolly Parton that has resonated within me since I first heard it. I don't criticize and condemn. I love and accept. That quote, like so much of what Dolly Parton, an American icon, was deceptively simple, uncomplicated on its face, but profound and deeply moving beyond the surface. Goodbye to a bright light.
Trump helps boost Graham to a South Carolina victory. Endorsement proves key in a Senate primary win. Terry Collins of USA Today writes, President Trump's endorsement proved essential for South Carolina Senator Darlene Graham's special runoff Senate primary win, which was very much in doubt before the August 25 primary. After Trump recruited Graham to serve out the remainder of her brother Lindsey's term, Trump pleaded in person with Republican voters in the Palmetto State to send Graham to the November general election at a campaign rally August 21 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. They followed his command. Excuse me. Lindsey Graham died unexpectedly July 11. The thing that hammered it home was Trump's visit and telling the MAGA crowd that his endorsement was unequivocal, according to Scott Huffman, political science professor at Winthrop University. Trump left no doubt who he was behind. They voted the way he told them to, period. Now that led the Trump-endorsed incumbent and political neophyte to beat hardline conservative rep Ralph Norman in the heavily Republican state, 52% to 48%. Experts had labeled the race a toss, and on August 24th, poll showed that the two contenders were tied at 48% each. We did it, Graham told supporters during her victory speech. I have mixed emotions right now. I'm still feeling grief, heartache, and an immense gratitude. Thank you all again. The gratitude also included thanking Trump for making it happen. Graham added that the South Carolina is truly Trump country. Now, whether Graham is prepared for the job is going to be the next test in the deeply red state. Danielle Vinson, politics and international affairs professor at Furman University, told USA Today. Her entire campaign is, quote, I will follow Donald Trump's agenda, according to Vinson. Now that's been her message. Why should you stop now? Trump stressed the importance of Graham winning at the August 21 campaign rally. He urged supporters to vote for Graham and wanted them to pretend, please, that I'm on the ballot Just come and vote. It's so important. The MAGA support came out in full force, Huffman said, especially in Horry County, where Trump visited in Myrtle Beach. As the votes were coming in, it became obvious she was going to win, Huffman said. It wasn't microscopic. It wasn't overwhelming. But it's a pretty solid win over a proven candidate. Although Norman won heavily populated Greenville County, he couldn't expand his support base beyond his own congressional district in upstate South Carolina. Norman couldn't make inroads further south and east, Vincent said. He simply could not appeal to them. Huffman said Graham's name recognition helped, but clearly, and I cannot say this enough, the full-throated, unequivocal Trump endorsement and visit gave her a clear victory. Graham's win only adds to Trump's near-perfect primary success rate for his endorsed Republican candidates, including Georgia Senate nominee Mike Collins, Texas Senate nominee Ken Paxton, and New York congressional nominee Anthony Constantino, according to Ballotopedia, an elections website. Trump got more endorsement magic August 25 as his pick for Oklahoma governor, former state senator Mike Mazzei, defeated state attorney general Gentner Drummond in a Republican primary runoff. Did the "I'm not a polished politician" gaffe hurt Graham? Well, based on her runoff win, voters may not mind Graham's lack of political experience, even after Graham was asked during a debate whether Taiwan and the South China Sea are important national security interests for the United States. I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military, Graham said. I'm not a polished politician up here. National security is not my thing, not my area of expertise, but I do support the military. Now that misstep didn't matter this time, and it probably won't going forward, said Vincent. We don't seem to care, Vincent said. But Trump isn't polished either, and he's won 3 times in the state. I guess we have some South Carolina voters who prefer unpolished non-politicians. Still, Graham has to become more adept. Huffman, the Winthrop University professor, said, although she will be the favorite against Democratic nominee and political novice Annie Andrews, who has been campaigning for more than a year in the heavily Republican state. Mistakes will happen, but she really has to try really hard not to make gaffes in her debates anymore, according to Huffman. In her victory speech, Graham took shots at Andrews, calling her opponent the most radical liberal ever nominated for a statewide office by the South Carolina Democratic Party, comparing her views with those of Senator Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democrat from New York. If you like Kamala Harris for president, you're going to love Dr. Annie Andrews, Graham said, adding that a conservative South Carolina cannot allow Democratic socialists to take a foothold in their state.
Moving to the money section of USA Today, drowning in debt, how $40 trillion in U.S. debt affects everyday living costs. From Medora Lee of USA Today. The U.S. government's massive spending spree is going to make it even harder for Americans to keep pace with rising costs and reach the American dream, economists said. The U.S. gross federal debt surpassed $40 trillion for the first time in history, the U.S. Treasury said last week. That's a number with 13 zeros and looks like this. Well, and it's all spelled out here with 40 plus 13 zeros. It's more than double the $19.95 trillion when President Trump was sworn in for the first time in January of 2017, and it includes $32.266 trillion in Treasury securities held by the public and $7.782 trillion in intragovernmental debt holdings. Even if most Americans may not be able to fathom those numbers, they're already feeling the effects of them every day, economists said. Soaring debt, if unchecked, boosts inflation and interest rates and reduces wages and opportunities for Americans. The $40 trillion national debt has a direct influence on everyday living costs, said Caleb Quackenbush, director of the fiscal policy at the nonprofit Bipartisan Policies Center think tank. Our nation's lenders, concerned about the lack of a plan to get our fiscal house in order, are asking taxpayers to pay more for what government borrows. That also raises the cost of debt of everyone else. If a mortgage is out of reach or financing for your business has gotten more expensive, the debt is part of the reason. How does national debt hurt salaries? To pay for increased spending, the government issues debt like treasuries and bonds with higher interest rates to attract investors. When investors put money into government debt, they also do so at the expense of more productive private investments, what economists refer to as the crowding out effect. Those private investments might include the development of new products and technologies, construction of buildings and roads through loans, or buying company stock or bonds. If there's less investment in technologies that make it easier and cheaper to produce goods and services, prices are likely to increase, and shortages may be more likely, the Government Accountability Office said. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that for every dollar added to the deficit, private investment loses 33 cents, which diminishes economic growth and wages over time. After 3 decades, CBO found that the average annual per-person income would be $9,000 lower, or reduced by 10%, if government debt continued to grow instead of being pared down. Americans won't actually see a drop in their paychecks, but it's money they will potentially never pocket, economists said. Americans, especially younger and future generations, will feel the loss with a lower standard of living. Not only will the economy and wage growth slow, but there's potential for higher taxes and interest rates, economists have said. A key figure of the debt report is the public debt to gross domestic product, or GDP ratio, which measures how much of the government debt is held by non-government entities relative to what the nation produces annually. The ratio has consistently risen. CBO estimates that the debt to GDP ratio will rise from 101% this year to 120% in 2036.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:47.
Continuing, this figure is well above the previous record of 106% reached after World War II. Every 10% increase in the debt to GDP ratio translates into a 0.2 to 0.3 percentage point increase in interest rates, a 2019 CBO study said. More debt leads to higher interest rates, making credit less affordable, the budget lab at Yale said in March. For example, the rise in long-term interest rates since 2015 due to the ballooning deficit significantly raised the cost of a 30-year mortgage on a median home price in 2025 by about $2,500 annually. That's roughly $76,000 more than people paid over the life of the loan compared to if federal debt had remained static. Now, how does exploding government debt affect social programs? Similar to how a growing deficit crowds out private investments, it also squeezes public investments, economists said. Just the interest payments alone on the massive debt are the third largest part of the government budget after health care and Social Security. The cost of servicing our debt is already consuming resources that could be used to grow our economy, strengthen our national security, and improve Americans' lives, said Representative Lloyd Schmucker, a Republican from Pennsylvania, who is vice chair of the House Budget Committee, said this in a statement. The main way to reduce the swelling deficit is to put an ice pack on it, economists have said. Some economists suggest Congress commit to limiting spending, especially in the fastest growing areas. Much of that borrowing is to sustain fast-growing Social Security and Medicare costs, which face looming trust fund shortfalls in 2032 and 33. Quackenbush said, any path to stabilizing the debt will require lawmakers to confront the challenges of those programs head on. Some options for Social Security have included reducing benefits for high earners, raising the full retirement age, and raising the income cap for the payroll tax that helps fund Social Security benefits.
Amazon faces a suit over eco-friendly label. Lawsuits say products claims misled consumers. Damon Williams of USA Today writes, "You may be compelled to buy groceries based on eco-friendly claims, but are you truly getting what you paid for?" Amazon is facing a proposed class action lawsuit alleging that some seafood products sold through its platform were marketed using sustainability claims that misled consumers. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington, July 31. The lawsuit has renewed attention on a term known as greenwashing. That's a practice critics say can make products appear more environmentally friendly than they actually are. The lawsuit comes at a time when sustainability claims have become increasingly important to shoppers. A Nielsen IQ study cited by McKinsey Insights found that 78% of U.S. consumers say a sustainable lifestyle is important to them, helping explain why environmental marketing claims can influence purchasing decisions. Trellis reported that in 2025, 49% of Americans said they recently purchased a product that was labeled environmentally friendly. So here's what greenwashing really is and what you can do to avoid the tactic. According to Investopedia, greenwashing is a term used when a company is accused of making environmental claims that are misleading, exaggerated, or unsupported. The practice generally involves marketing products, services, or business practices as environmentally friendly, sustainable, or eco-conscious in ways critics say may not accurately reflect their true environmental impact. So how can a shopper spot potential greenwashing? The Federal Trade Commission published guidance known as the Green Guides to help businesses avoid making environmental marketing claims that could mislead consumers. The FTC notes that consumers and companies may interpret environmental claims differently and cautions marketers against making broad or unqualified claims about a product's environmental benefits without proper support. Based on the FTC Green Guides, one of the biggest warning signs is when companies make broad, unqualified environmental claims, such as green or eco-friendly, without clearly explaining what those claims mean. The FTC notes that broad environmental benefit claims can be difficult to substantiate, and that companies should clearly identify the specific environmental benefit they're claiming. Consumers may want to look beyond broad terms like green and eco-friendly and sustainable when evaluating a product. The FTC advises businesses to clearly explain the benefits that they are claiming and cautions against broad, unqualified environmental marketing claims that could mislead consumers. Shoppers may want to look for specific explanations, certifications, and supporting information rather than relying solely on those environmental buzzwords. Unlike nutrition labels, there is no single government-run directory that verifies every environmental claim consumers encounter on store shelves. Experts recommend looking beyond broad marketing language and researching what specific certifications or claims they actually mean.
Mm-hmm. Retail earnings reveal a more cautious America. From Juvaria Tabsum and Ananjua Bharat Mystery. Walmart's disappointing sales and Home Depot's strength among budget-conscious do-it-yourselfers indicate middle-class American consumers are growing more tight-fisted, even as wealthier shoppers have kept supporting luxury brands like Ralph Lauren. Earnings reports over the past month from a slate of U.S. supermarkets, home improvement stores, restaurants, and luxury brands have shown consumers directing most of their spending toward essentials and putting off big projects while still making room for affordable treats and occasional splurges. While affluent shoppers continue to snap up Ralph Lauren linen stores and prestige beauty products, lower income consumers are stretching budgets at Taco Bell and Ross stores, pairing value meals and discount apparel with essential purchases. Aggregate spending has not collapsed, but households are becoming much more deliberate about where their money goes, said Lael O'Connor, a global market strategist at eToro. In an era of elevated gasoline prices, the trend is expected to carry into the key holiday shopping season. Retailers will probably rely on a mix of discounts, new merchandise, and higher-end brands to keep customers coming. When fuel prices increase and get above $4, perhaps there's a psychological impact to that. Consumers are making trade-offs, Walmart CFO John David Rainey said on August the 20th, after the company reported its slowest same-store sales growth in 6 years, despite rolling back prices on 11,000 items. Price cuts alone may no longer be enough to compel a reticent shopper. At McDonald's, discounted meal options this quarter on an otherwise expensive menu failed to draw customers who responded more strongly to fresh menu items at Yum! Brand stores such as Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut. Walmart, TJ Maxx owner TJX, and Home Depot all warned that shoppers remain selective, while U.S. retail sales in July logged their first fall in 9 months. Selectivity is visible at snacks and impulse, where the shopper will still pay up for one item they came in wanting to and then skip the second one, said Joel Goldstein, president at Mr. Checkout Distributors. Companies known for affordable luxuries, including Tapestry, Estee Lauder, and Birkenstock, report strong results on demand for apparel, bags, and fragrances priced well above $100. Coffee chain Starbucks has managed to recover sales for its pricey lattes as customers rewarded improved service times and a better store environment.
You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, August the 27th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And turning to our sports page, last shot for all the marbles. 30 are set for the FedEx Cup playoffs finale. 7 experts each predict a champion. This is authored by Tim Schmidt from Golf Week and the USA Today Network. All it comes down to is this. The 2026 Tour Championship tees off on August 27th from East Lake Golf Club in Atlanta. Golf Week staffers locked in their best picks to win this weekend. Who they expect to sit atop the leaderboard when play ends on Sunday? First from Adam Schupak, he picks Cameron Young. Young's driver is a weapon. That can help him pick apart East Lake if he finds the fairway. Last year, his 4th place tie at the Tour Championship helped earn him a captain's pick on the U.S. Ryder Cup. He's been a stud ever since. A 3rd big boy win of the season would also make him a third-party candidate for Player of the Year. Next, Cameron Jordan picks Patrick Cantley. Cantley is coming off his best finish of the season, a solo second Sunday at the BMW Championship. Now he heads to East Lake, where he won in 2021 and finished tied for second last season. He hasn't won in more than 4 years, but he has been trending recently and seems to constantly play his best golf in the playoffs. At a place he's plenty comfortable at, expect a long winless drought to end. Todd Kelly favors Colin Morikawa. Morikawa made a too little too late run this past Sunday at the BMW, but that just shows that he has been lingering and could pounce any time. His last 5 starts, tied for 17th at the U.S. Open, 3rd in the Travelers, tied for 18th in the Open Championship, tied for 52nd in St. Jude, and tied for 4th in the BMW tournament, stack up against pretty much anyone else during that stretch. He also won a signature event, the AT&T Pebble Beach, this year, so look for him to bag another big-time trophy. Tim Schmidt likes Scotty Scheffler. If this were a surviving pool, I would say I have been saving Scotty all season for a big bang, but he just plays bigger in the big moments, and this feels as big as they get for the last half of the season. Next, Jason Luck. He likes the Rory McIlroy. After a slow couple of months since winning the Masters in April, McIlroy showed some spark at the BMW Championship. He has shown 3 times before that he can win at East Lake. Nicholas Stavas likes Rory McIlroy. With his poor performance in the St. Jude Classic in Memphis 2 weeks ago, it appeared that McIlroy's hiatus following the Open might have put his game in a rough spot. It turns out he just needed to shake the rust off, because he was excellent in the BMW at Bellerive. Aside from the 17th hole on Sunday, he's usually dynamite at East Lake too. Since 2016, he has 7 top 10 finishes and 3 wins at the Tour Championship. I think he adds a 4th FedEx Cup to his trophy case. And finally, David Dusek. He also likes Rory McIlroy. 2 weeks ago, I wrote that Sam Burns was going to win the Tour Championship, and he looked good at the FedEx St. Jude Championship, but Rory McIlroy reminded me on Sunday why I love watching him play. If it weren't for a botched 17th hole at Bellerive in St. Louis, he might have won the BMW Championship. McIlroy has already won at East Lake 3 times, so I'm hopping off the Burns bandwagon and going all in this week on Rory. Okay.
No end to college lunacy. Matt Hayes, a college football columnist for USA Today Network, writes, "We've seen an overflow of stupid in college football circles over the past 5 years, the likes of which are going to be studied for decades. But, ladies and gentlemen, a new leader has emerged, a moment that will have its own special place in the annals of Dumb and Dumber. Beyond opening the barn doors of name, image, and likeness, listed as NIL, and free player movement at the same time, beyond the alliance and a 2014 playoff and judge shopping. Because right now, in these United States, there's an attorney who thinks a judge can force a university to sign a player, or else. Ryan Downton, the man who got Diego Pavia for another year of eligibility at Vanderbilt, and we thank you profusely for that, Rye, told Yahoo Sports the NCAA should be held in contempt of court for permitting conferences under its purview to blatantly violate court orders. And I know this is going to completely shock you. He plans to file a motion on it. My God, where do we start? First, the NCAA does not permit any conference to do anything. Secondly, and more important, the days of the NCAA telling the Big Ten and SEC what to do ended in 2014, when they were officially named autonomous conferences and given legislative autonomy. The whole power thing is a cover for their official name, the Autonomous Four. In other words, they are autonomous from the rest of the NCAA for nearly every rule decision made. The only thing they use the NCAA for is the organization of championship events outside of the college football playoff. The SEC and the Big Ten, and to a lesser extent the ACC and Big 12, simply make it look as though the NCAA is passing specific rules and regulations. But don't kid yourself. They're first discussed by the A4 conferences, which then tell the NCAA what they're going to do. The NCAA then sends out a release to trumpet any new NCAA rules. There, you get it? Now back to the lunacy of forcing a school to sign a player. In what world would any judge, even in the state of Mississippi, we joke because we love Magnolia and because Trinidad Chambliss, declare the NCAA is in contempt of court, and that the NCAA must force its member institutions to sign a player because that player was given a 5th year of eligibility. So, unless we've suddenly become a third world country, those legal gymnastics don't fly in the greatest country in the history of this big round ball circling a star. Any player who has been deemed eligible for a 5th season can have a 5th season. It's not even an argument after a handful of recent judge shopping cases. And here's the key. It does not mean any university is bound to sign them. Take a deep breath, everybody. I do believe we've finally reached the bandwidth of legal wrangling and intrusion into college sports. The conferences can make any rules anytime they see fit. It's in the charters. The conferences, like the NCAA, are made up of the universities within the conference. Now, this isn't the NFL, where it looks more like it every day, where there's a separate governing body from the 32 teams, a true body that makes and enforces rules, with a single commissioner as judge and jury, and a players' association that can appeal decisions. Major college football, the Football Bowl subdivision, is made up of 10 different bodies or conferences, and Notre Dame, and none of the 11 trust the other. In a sadistic and wildly narcissistic way, it's everybody for themselves. So, when you read the Big Ten or SEC have said XYZ, what that means is the presidents and chancellors of those conferences have agreed to something, and it's promoted as a conference decision. It's not the NCAA, it's not a cartel, and it's not a collusion. It's 11 governing bodies that do not trust each other, that actively work and compete against each other, passing their own rules and bylaws. Essentially, the reason we're in this 5-year structural death spiral in the first place. But Downton thinks he's going to find a judge who's going to agree the NCAA is permitting conferences under its purview, whatever that means, to violate a court order. An order, mind you, that simply said specific players were allowed to enjoy a fifth year of eligibility. Nowhere in any of those orders did it say universities must sign players, much less pay them, which is what this is all about anyway. Now, if a school in the SEC or Big Ten breaks from its conference rules and decides to sign one of those players, LSU, now that's a different story, though I highly doubt schools would risk the penalties of doing so, to say nothing of the public relations shame. So, sure, come on back to college sports, fellas. But you're not playing in the Big Ten and the SEC. You won't be able to play in the Big 12 and ACC when they soon follow procedural suit, no matter how many motions are filed in the court of stupidity.
5 Major League Baseball teams partner with Prediction Bet Company. From Adam Kaufman of USA Today. Kalshi is expanding its presence in professional sports with partnerships involving 5 of Major League Baseball's most recognizable franchises, including 4 located in states where traditional sports betting remains illegal. The federally regulated prediction market announced August 25th that it has entered exclusive multi-year partnerships with the Atlanta Braves, Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodgers, San Diego Padres, and San Francisco Giants. The agreements represent another significant step in prediction markets' push into mainstream sports, even as Kalshi remains locked in legal battles across the country over whether its sports event contracts should be regulated exclusively as financial products at the federal level or also be subject to state gambling laws. The geography of the new partnerships is particularly notable. Traditional online sports betting remains illegal in California, home of the Dodgers, Padres, and Giants, as well as Georgia, home of the Braves. Massachusetts has legal sports betting, but a state court issued a preliminary injunction in January preventing Kalshi from offering sports event contracts there without complying with state gaming laws. The 5 deals, therefore, span states where traditional sports betting is either prohibited or where Kalshi sports contracts have faced a direct legal challenge. The partnerships will give Kalshi a presence through in-stadium advertising, digital and radio promotions, branded spaces, and fan activations, according to the company's release. Financial terms were not disclosed, and Major League Baseball declined to comment on the announcement. The Dodgers agreement includes Kalshi-branded LED signage throughout Dodger Stadium, naming rights to the Gold Glove Bar, and fan activations in Center Field Plaza. The idea is that fans are already engaging with their favorite teams on Kalshi, so it only makes sense to extend that fandom to some of the most beloved baseball teams in America. Adam Barrett, Kalshi's head of sports partnerships, said in the company's announcement. Kalshi said baseball activity on its platform has increased dramatically over the last year. Nearly 13 billion baseball-related contracts have been traded in 2026, according to Fortune, up from roughly 355 million over the same period last year. The company could eventually establish an even larger relationship with baseball. Kalshi is in discussions with Major League Baseball about a potential league-wide partnership. Fortune reported, citing a person familiar with the company's plans. MLB previously announced an exclusive partnership with Polymarket in March. The 5 agreements come amid a broader race among prediction markets to establish relationships with professional sports organizations. Polymarket recently partnered with the New York Yankees, while Novig signed a multi-year agreement with the New York Mets in July. Polymarket also struck a deal with Major League Soccer in January. Major League Baseball itself has become more involved with the emerging industry. The league entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which is the CFTC, in March, intended to facilitate information sharing surrounding the integrity concerns of baseball event contracts. Now, is Kalshi legal in the USA? Kalshi's expansion has unfolded alongside a complicated legal battle over who has the authority to regulate sports prediction markets. Kalshi does not operate as a traditional sports book or under state reports betting licenses. Instead, it is a federally regulated designated contract market, which is DCM, overseen by the CFTC, where customers buy and sell event contracts tied to real-world outcomes. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:15. And continuing, those events increasingly include sports. Kalshi's belief is that its sports contracts are derivatives regulated under the Federal Commodity Exchange Act and therefore fall solely under the CFTC's jurisdiction. Several states disagree. State regulators and attorneys general have argued that putting money on contracts tied to the outcome of sporting events is no different than sports wagering, regardless of how the products are structured or labeled. Under that interpretation, Kalshi would need to comply with individual state gambling laws, including licensing requirements and other regulations imposed on traditional sports books. That disagreement has produced a growing collection of lawsuits and conflicting court decisions. Kalshi scored a significant victory in April when the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit sided with the company in its dispute with New Jersey. The appeals court concluded that Kalshi was likely to succeed in showing that its sports-related event contracts qualify as swaps under federal law, and that the Commodity Exchange Act preempts New Jersey from regulating them under its gambling laws. Kalshi hasn't enjoyed the same success everywhere. In addition to the Massachusetts case, Nevada has prevailed at the federal district court level. A judge dissolved an earlier injunction protecting Kalshi from state enforcement after concluding that sports event contracts are not swapped subject to CFTC's exclusive jurisdiction. New York has become another major battleground. Attorney General Letitia James sued Kalshi in July, alleging the company operates as an illegal gambling operation. New York has sought a temporary restraining order and at least $36 billion in damages. The federal regulator has responded aggressively to the growing state challenges. This month, the CFTC exercised emergency authority after New York filed its lawsuit, ordering Kalshi to continue operating in accordance with the Commodity Exchange Act's core principles. The agency said federal law requires it to provide a uniform national market in derivatives transactions. The CFTC has also intervened in or challenged state efforts to regulate prediction markets elsewhere. The result is an unusual legal landscape. Kalshi is a federally regulated exchange operating under CFTC oversight. Courts, including the Third Circuit, have supported this argument that federal law supersedes state gambling regulation. Other courts and state regulators conclude otherwise. Until higher courts or Congress more definitely settle that conflict, whether states can regulate or prohibit Kalshi's sports events contracts will remain an open legal question.
The resilient Diamondbacks stunned with late-game heroics. Bob Nightingale, columnist for USA Today, writes, their star second baseman has not shown his face in the Arizona Diamondbacks clubhouse ever since he went AWOL a week ago and has yet to publicly apologize to a single teammate. Their manager has been privately mocked and scorned inside and out of the organization for his public response to Ketel Marte's disappearing act. Their starting rotation is a patchwork job with only one current starter who's been on their opening day roster this entire season. Their closer was released. And yet, here are the Diamondbacks, staying alive in the National League wildcard race, showing uncanny resiliency with their MLB leading 40th comeback victory of the season, winning 5-4 over the Chicago Cubs on August 25, capped by rookie Ryan Waldschmidt's pinch hit walk-off homer with 2 outs in the 9th inning. I think they have the mentality that they're just a bunch of dogs, Diamondbacks manager Torey Lovullo said, and they're just not going to stop. They're going to keep getting after it every single day. And that's just ingrained in them. That's been pounded into this group since they came into the system. They're going to fight together every single day until that last out. This group is pretty darn special, and I legitimately think this group loves one another. Now, that, of course, remains to be seen when Marte is scheduled to return to the Diamondbacks August 31, when they face the Philadelphia Phillies at Chase Field. We're trying to create the softest space for him to reemerge back into this environment, Lovullo said. And that's up to him, however he wants to do it. I cannot force a human being to do something that I want to do, or anybody in this room wants to do, or a fan wants to do. One of the things that make Kittle such an extraordinary player is that he goes to the beat of his own drum. I talk to just about every player. I know how they feel, but it's a very individualized situation. While some Diamondback players are incensed at Martell's actions, knowing he also left the team for 3 games last season after the All-Star break without permission, others are open to forgiveness. We love him. So I wouldn't say it's a distraction. Diamondback starter Brandon Pfaadt, who pitched 6 2/3 innings on Tuesday, told USA Today, it's just that we've got to get him right, and we'll be back on track. I feel there's a lot of drama outside of the clubhouse, and people are trying to exaggerate what's going on. But in the clubhouse, I feel like we're all still together, still on his side. I feel like there's a lot of outside noise being brought up that most of it is exaggerated. It's not really true. This night, the only noise was the sound of Waldschmidt's home run, traveling 408 feet into the night off reliever Jacob Webb, turning a 4-0 deficit in the 8th inning, while trailing 4-3 with 2 outs in the 9th, into a stunning victory. The victory moved the Diamondbacks at 70 games to 63, within 1 game of the San Diego Padres for the 3rd and final wild card spot. I think that says a lot about all of us, Waldschmidt said. We're pretty resilient, never out of the game. I think it's a pretty cool stat to be a part of. Waldschmidt also has become part of some historic stats himself. He became the first rookie to hit 2 walk-off homers while trailing in the same month, according to OptaStats. He also is the first rookie to hit a pinch hit walk-off homer in Diamondbacks history. Pretty cool, Waldschmidt said. Pinch hitting's hard in general, but to be able to come in against a team of this caliber, to go up there and to be able to do something like that, obviously, it's pretty cool. And just like that, with 29 games left to play, heading into August 26, and veteran starters Zach Gallen and Corbin Burns hoping to rejoin the team in mid-September, the D-backs still alive. We haven't had a lot of really positive momentum and good vibes, Lovullo said, but these boys don't quit.
$10 million, should say 10 million reasons to win. PGA Tour field resets for the Tour Championship finale from Adam Schupak of Golf Week and USA Today Network. Tommy Fleetwood remembers when the FedEx Cup trophy got delivered to his home after winning the Tour Championship last year. When you have them, it's great. You can look at them, but it's just a piece of silverware, Fleetwood said on August 26th at a press conference ahead of his title defense at East Lake Golf. But when the FedEx Cup came and it got delivered, that was cool. I stood and stared at that one for a bit. That's a nice one. The twin titles of the Tour Championship and the season-long FedEx Cup will be handed out on Sunday to one of the contestants in the 30-man field, along with a $10 million payday out of a $40 million purse. For the second straight year, the entire field will start at even par in the 72-hole stroke play tournament after the PGA Tour abandoned the staggered start scoring that was deemed gimmicky and difficult for fans to understand. It has veteran Australian pro Adam Scott, who snuck in at number 29, feeling giddy about his chances. Kind of living on the edge a little bit last week and scraped through. Now with the reset, I feel like I'm coming in number one on the FedEx Cup. It's a great opportunity for me. Excuse me. The same could be said for Patrick Cantlay, who ranked number 43 in the season-long standing before finishing second last week at the BMW Championship to be one of 3 players to crash the party at East Lake, along with Gary Woodland and Robert McIntyre. Ricky Fowler, Bud Cauley, and Kurt Kayatama, who was the odd man out at number 31, all got bounced and had to change their travel plans for home. Cantlay, winner of the FedEx Cup in 2021 and tied for second a year ago, said of the Tour Championship, "It's definitely circled on the calendar for all the players in the field as one of the biggest events of the year, no matter the format." Scotty Scheffler, winner of the FedEx Cup in 2024, topped the season-long points race, heading into this week's reset for the 5th time, the most of any player in the FedEx Cup all time. It also marks the 80th week that he's been ranked first in the PGA Tour career, the second most of any player all time, and just 5 weeks behind Tiger Woods. Scheffler has a good chance, along with Rory McIlroy, to pass Woods as a Tour career money leader, depending on their performance. Asked about the importance of winning the season finale, Scheffler said, "It felt a bit year-defining because you had the whole season kind of built up to this tournament. When I came here in 2024, I had the lead in the FedEx Cup for like 6 months. In order to win the FedEx Cup, you have to play good golf at a golf course that I hadn't really played my best golf at yet. So to come in here in 24 the way I did and play well and win the tournament, that was a big moment for me in my career because it was a place I had a tough loss and hadn't played my best golf yet." Scheffler finished 4th last season in his title defense, and Fleetwood is seeking to become the first repeat champion of the FedEx Cup. A victory could go a long way for Scheffler in securing a 5th straight Player of the Year award. Wyndham Clark, who won for the 3rd time this season at the BMW Championship, could also stake his claim to the award. Scheffler was referring to his victory here in 2024, but he might as well be referring to this season when he won twice and a record 5 second-place finishes and rarely been out of contention. "I had been the best golfer the whole year, and I really wanted to be able to win the FedEx Cup. And for me, that was a big moment to finish off the year the right way, a year in which I won a bunch of times. To be able to finish off with a win and be the season-long winner on tour was really important to me," he said. Scheffler still is dealing with the effects of hand, mouth, and foot disease, a common contagious viral illness mostly affecting young children, but he deemed himself as feeling 95% this week. "The only thing maybe just still a couple of sores in my throat," he said, but other than that I feel really good." He also noted that the Bermuda rough is as healthy as I've seen it this year, he said. "Typically, when you get Bermuda rough, you can hit shots out of it, play out of it. This week seems like pretty much hack out rough around the course. I think that's a little different than years past." But what isn't different is that the winner this week at East Lake will go home with not 1 but 2 trophies, one for the Tour Championship and the other for the FedEx Cup. Fleetwood still admires his silverware when he sees them at home, but it's not what he treasures most from his first PGA Tour title. "That little tap in and knowing that it was done," he said. "I think that's probably the biggest thing that sticks with me."
The Irish unmatched in talent at linebacker. Austin Curtright with USA Today Network writes, "There are a handful of intriguing linebackers cores returning to college football in 2026, along with a few key transfers across the sport. At Texas Tech, linebacker Jacob Rodriguez is off to the NFL after sweeping linebacker awards with an all-time season last year, taking home the Butkus Award for Best Linebacker, Nagurski Trophy for the Best Defensive Player, Lombardi Award, Best Lineman Linebacker, and Bednarik Award, Defensive Player of the Year. Now, even without him, the Red Raiders will have a standout unit once again, with returner Ben Roberts and Kansas State transfer Austin Romaine. As good as that unit could be, however, It narrowly misses the list ranking the top 5 linebacker units in college football. The linebacker position is stacked with talent this season. So here's a look at the best linebacker units in college football heading into this year. At number 1, Notre Dame. Now, they don't have the most well-known names at linebacker in the country, but its blend of experience and veteran presence is virtually unmatched. Indeed, the Irish returned nearly all of their linebacker snaps from last season in Kingston, Viliamu Asa, Drake Bowen, and Jaden Osbury. Viliamu Asa, one of the top 2027 NFL draft prospects at the position, ended the year with 48 total tackles, with 3 sacks and an interception, despite only having 3 career starts. He's expected to be one of the biggest breakouts in college football this season. Now, Bowen, an experienced player at the Mike position, is heading into his 3rd season as a starter and was voted as team captain last year. He led the team with 67 total tackles, 3.5 sacks in 2025, after ranking 2nd for the Fighting Irish with 78 total tackles in 2024.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:31.
Osbury, meanwhile, has played a key role for Notre Dame the past 2 seasons as well, with 107 total tackles combined the past 2 seasons. And at number 2, Oklahoma. 5th-year coach Brent Venables best knows defense, and he knows linebackers, playing the position himself at Kansas State. The Sooners return one of the most experienced groups in college football, headlined by 5th-year senior Kip Lewis and 6th-year senior Owen Heineke, a former walk-on. Oklahoma also added sought-after Michigan transfer Cole Sullivan, who stands at 6'4", 230 pounds, and who had 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and 3 interceptions last year. Lewis tallied 76 total tackles with 4 sacks and a forced fumble last season, and has a knack for coming up with huge plays. The Carthage, Texas native had 2 sacks in Oklahoma's upset win over Alabama last season, and also had 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns in 2024 against Auburn and Alabama in key moments. Heineke, meanwhile, was granted an injunction for the season after the NCAA originally denied his eligibility waiver, despite playing only a handful of minutes as a lacrosse player at Ohio State in 2021. He came out of nowhere in 2025, and he tallied 74 total tackles with 3 sacks and a forced fumble, making his first career start in Week 10 against Tennessee. Next, Georgia. Sorry, my voice decided to leave early. For Georgia, senior Raylan Wilson and juniors Chris Cole and Justin Williams, a trio of former 5-star recruits, are going to hold down the middle of Georgia's defense in 2026 after losing star C.J. Allen to the NFL draft. Like Notre Dame, Georgia's linebacker unit also features players it recruited from high school. A preseason second team, all SEC pick, Wilson ended 2025 with 74 total tackles, 2.5 sacks last season, starting all 14 games. Cole, a versatile linebacker, was used in a variety of ways in 2025, ending the year with 59 total tackles, along with 4.5 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. Williams, meanwhile, played in all 14 games last season. He could have an even bigger role this year, likely in a rotational role once again with Wilson and Cole. The Conroe, Texas native made 36 total tackles, 4 of them for a loss. At number 4, Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss grabbed one of the best transfer portal linebackers available in former Baylor star Keaton Thomas, who tallied 205 total tackles with 3.5 sacks and 2 interceptions in 2 seasons with the Bears. Thomas will pair with returning starter Suntarine Perkins, a preseason All-American by multiple outlets, and fellow transfer Luke Farrelly, who made headlines this offseason for first transferring to Clemson from Cal before backing out and joining Ole Miss. Thomas, who will play the will position, took the road less traveled to Ole Miss, starting his career at Northeast Mississippi Community before bulking up and becoming a junior college standout. He started Baylor before transferring to the Rebels for his final season of eligibility. Perkins, meanwhile, has been one of the most feared defenders in the SEC for multiple years. 179 total tackles, 18.5 sacks in 3 seasons. He also opted to return to Ole Miss instead of following former coach Lane Kiffin to LSU. Farrelly, a classic Mike linebacker, had 91 total tackles at Cal last season with a sack and an interception. And finally, at number 5, Indiana. Now, they lost consensus All-American Aiden Fisher to the NFL draft, but still returns Isaiah Jones and Elijah Hardy to the reigning national champions in 2026. Jones was a third-team All-Big Ten selection last season, starting 7 games and racking up 78 total tackles, 7 sacks, an interception, and a forced fumble. Hardy, meanwhile, was a second-team All-Big Ten member after ending the year with 102 total tackles and 8 sacks. Hardy and Jones ranked first and second in sacks for the Hoosiers last season, respectively. Defensive coordinator Brian Haynes runs a multiple 4-2-5 defense, deploying Jones and Hardy as pass rushers often, hence their sack totals last season. Jones, a fifth-year senior, has 33 career appearances at Indiana, with Hardy appearing in 29 games with 20 career starts in 3 seasons. Now it's clear Curt Cignetti has gotten the best of his 2 linebackers, who will be asked to carry a lot of responsibility this year.
Serena and Venus Williams get open doubles invites from Scooby Action of USA Today. Fresh off her quarterfinals mixed doubles run with Carlos Alcaraz, Serena Williams and sister Venus will play in women's doubles at the U.S. Open after accepting a wildcard invitation the United States Tennis Association announced on August the 26th. The 44-year-old continues to ramp up her activity on tour after a nearly 4-year hiatus away from tennis. Williams and Alcaraz won their first match August 25th, but lost in the quarterfinals 5-4, 4-1 to fourth-seeded Belinda Bencic and Flavio Cobolli. Serena Williams last played at the U.S. Open in 2022, a third-round loss to Azila Tomljanovic. She soon announced that she was evolving away from tennis after the tournament. Williams, a 6-time U.S. Open and 23 Grand Slam champion, started her comeback at the Queen's Club in June in doubles competition with Victoria Mboko, but had to withdraw after Mboko was injured in a singles match. She also competed in Berlin with doubles partner Karolina Makova and received a wild card to compete at Wimbledon, where she lost in the first round to Maya Joint. Williams injured her knee in the loss and had to withdraw from an anticipated doubles debut with Venus. The sisters played their first doubles match together since the 2022 U.S. Open in the Cincinnati Masters on August the 17th, but lost a first-round thriller to Marta Kostyuk and Peyton Stearns. It will be the 10th time the sisters have played together at the U.S. Open. They won the 1999 and 2009 doubles titles.
And opening the life section with an article that actually had to be put in the news section because of spacing. Tim Curry, 1946-2026. The Rocky Horror star ruled the stage and screen. The actor showed his range in dramas as well as musicals. Patrick Ryan and Brendan Morrow write this tribute. Tim Curry, actor, celebrated for his roles as Dr. Frank N. Furter in the cult classic film The Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Pennywise the Clown in the 1990 version of It, has died. He was 80. Curry's representative, Sean Katz, confirmed the news to USA Today. Tim Curry, the iconic actor and entertainer, globally beloved for his dynamic contributions to the stage and screen, passed away peacefully at his home in Toluca Lake, Los Angeles, on August 25, 2026. This was confirmed by his longtime manager and friend, Marcia Hurwitz, the statement read. Though widely known for his inimitable, flamboyant characters and colorful stage performances, his greatest legacies to those who knew him were his curious, expansive mind and generous, gentle heart, both of which remained open and filled with anticipation until his final breath. Curry had been suffering from health issues in recent years, and he told fans in 2025 he still struggles with mobility after a 2012 stroke. I still can't walk, which is why I'm in this silly chair, and it's very limiting, he said during an event at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles. So, I won't be singing. I won't be dancing very soon. I still have real problems with my left leg. Curry is immortalized in cinema history as the flamboyant, fishnet-wearing, sweet transvestite Dr. Frank N. Furter in Rocky Horror, the cult classical musical, co-starring Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick. A B-movie riff on Frankenstein, featuring beloved songs such as The Time Warp and science fiction double feature, the film has been a midnight movie staple for more than 5 decades, with a message that celebrates queerness, liberation, and individuality. It's given a lot of people permission to be themselves, Curry told USA Today. That was in an interview last fall. To not dream it, be it, which is the motto of the movie, really. I would like to be remembered for that. But it's good advice. Throughout his more than 5-decade career, Curry endeared himself to family audiences, playing patriarch Gomez Addams in the 1998 Addams Family reunion, Pirate Long John Silver in Muppet Treasure Island, and a suspicious Plaza Hotel concierge in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. In addition to Rocky Horror, Curry often shined in the musical realm, portraying the conniving rooster opposite Carol Burnett's Miss Hannigan in 1982's Annie, and earning a Tony Award nomination for leading actor for Monty Python's deeply silly Broadway adaptation of Spamalot, in which he played King Arthur. Curry showed impressive range in movies, as varied as The Hunt for Red October, Kinsey, and Ridley Scott's Legend. He was perhaps most beloved by comedy fans for playing Butler Wadsworth, the effective straight man of 1985's madcap ensemble mystery Clue, with Madeline Kahn and Christopher Lloyd. Of his films, the actor said he most enjoyed either Clue or Oscar, appearing alongside Sylvester Stallone in the 1991 screwball comedy. Curry was a standout in the latter, as Dr. Thornton Poole, a dialectician who falls for an ex-mobster's daughter, Marissa Tomei. It's the most like me, Curry told USA Today last year. My own personality. I didn't have to invent him. Curry also was a musician who released 3 albums in the late 70s and early 80s, also a prominent voice actor for video games and TV, and he earned a Grammy nomination for narrating an audiobook of Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:44. Parton 925 clocked in a legacy of empowerment from Brian Truitt and Aaron Jensen of USA Today. When Dolly Parton got her legendary hands on it, 925 wasn't just a movie title, a song, or even a work shift. For women, it was a bombastic, electrifying call to arms. Parton, who died August 25th at age 80 and privately battled cancer, starred in the comedy 9 to 5 alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin as employees who battled back against gender inequality and sexism in the workplace, taking the fight to their imperious, extremely handsy boss, Dabney Coleman. Parton also sang the hit song that the movie spawned, yet both tune and movie have become something more over the years. And we're not talking about the 80s sitcom or the 2009 Broadway musical. When an actress is discussing female-led comedy, such as comedian Michelle Buteau giving an interview about her new movie, Spa Weekend, 925 comes up in conversation. I don't know what it's like being a secretary, getting my boob grabbed. You know what I mean? But I'm like, I want to watch that. I still go back to it. You know, Buteau told USA Today recently. The film marked Parton's Hollywood debut. The country star also would star in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, Rhinestone, and Steel Magnolias, all in the same decade, though the premise was Fonda's idea. The movie centered on new employee Judy, played by Fonda, veteran staffer Violet, played by Tomlin, who has long been ready for a promotion, and Secretary Dora Lee, played by Parton. They all have reasons to hate their boss, Frank, who is played by Coleman. Dora Lee especially, since she bears the brunt of his sexual harassment shenanigans, and in the movie they fantasize about getting their revenge. Dora Lee hogties and puts him on a spit, ready to cook him. Judy fires at him with a hunting rifle. Violet poisons his coffee. The last accidentally does happen, which leads to power struggles between the bigoted jerk and our trio of heroines. But Parton gets the best scene in the movie as Dora Lee confronts Frank and puts him in his place. If you say another word about me or make another indecent proposal, I'm going to get that gun of mine and I'm going to change you from a rooster to a hen in one shot. The movie is based on the lives and experiences of female office workers in the 9 to 5 organization, founded in 1973, points out Eileen DeVault, a Cornell University professor of labor history. Parton's role in 9 to 5 and the success of the iconic theme song of the same name, which she wrote and performed, helped turn a grassroots campaign against workplace sexism into a national conversation, DeVault says. Ultimately, 9 to 5 proved inspirational to women in the workforce who wanted something better for themselves and their families, and they passed that ethos on to younger generations who have strived for equal pay and rights. The hashtag #MeToo movement and modern women embracing 9 to 5 as a war cry against sexism and harassment in the world. In that movie, we refuse to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot, Fonda said at a reunion of the 3 stars at the Emmy Awards. And in 2017, we still refuse to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritically bigot, Tomlin added, getting a rousing cheer from the crowd for what seemed to be a jab at President Trump. Generations to come will not only have the movie, but also Parton's song as a forever empowerment anthem, which oozed girl power way before that was such a thing. In effect, the song is very much a companion to the film. Though Parton's lyrics for 9 to 5 are realistic in their perspective, the song also is a catchy dose of wish fulfillment. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. Just think about that the next time you pour yourself a cup of ambition.
And her words reveal wisdom, wit, and grit. A joint article by Patrick Ryan, Aaron Jensen, Melissa Ruggieri, and Ralphie Aversa. Parton was and will always be the backwoods Barbie. The vivacious music legend who died August 25 at 80 after privately battling cancer extolled all manner of wisdom throughout her 70-year career, sharing delightful yet sneakily profound gems about beauty, confidence, self-love, and hard work. And as a cherished pop culture figure, she knew the power that her art had to bring people together. I think music does unify us, Parton told USA Today in 2023. I think that's a universal language, as they say, the voice of the soul. She spoke to USA Today many times throughout her life. Here are just a few of the most memorable things that she had to share with us. Most of us grew up with Parton in one way or another, whether it was through her music and films or visiting her Dollywood theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. As a result, she always took her icon status very seriously. It's a little scary sometimes. I hope I can live up to all of that, Parton told USA Today in 2023. But I think a lot of it is that I've been around for so long. I'm like a favorite aunt or a godmother or a favorite sister. I've been around so long that people just think of me as part of the family. I've just been a fixture in their lives. I like that I'm a part of that. I just hope I never let anybody down. It ain't as important as some of you make me sound. Over the decades, Parton has appeared on all types of merchandise, and she enjoys seeing her likeness at drag shows. I'm big with the drag queens, Parton said. Every now and then, I'll get these videos of Dolly lookalikes. I've also seen myself on those Duncan Hines cake boxes in the supermarket. I signed so many of those boxes. I've now signed more cake mixes than I have photos through the years. My wife and I tried one of them, by the way. They're very good. In Parton's 2023 book, Behind the Seams, My Life in Rhinestones, the singer wrote, "Not everybody's supposed to look like a movie star. You should be comfortable in your own skin, no matter how far it stretches." It's a realization she made early on. I think I've always been confident, Parton told USA Today. That comment started out as a joke. I was referring to the plastic surgery and how I've done these nips and tucks. I always think of myself as a workhorse that looks like a show horse. And I've got to keep that show horse up. So I do whatever it takes. Same with clothes. I really do think that fashion is not just what's fashionable. True fashion is what you're most comfortable in. If you're going to be motivated and motivating, you need to feel comfortable in what you wear. If you think you look good, you're going to do better. You're going to be more apt to step forward and be assertive. Parton worked steadily for roughly 7 decades, and until this year, she never slowed down. Work is everything to me, Parton told USA Today in 2024. That's all I know. It's what I do. It's how all these things have come to pass. I would only retire if I was ill or if my husband, Carl Dean, was ill and needed me. That'd be the only thing that would make me pull back. Parton was a generous philanthropist who worked tirelessly to help children's education, disaster relief, and COVID research. She even helped fund the Moderna vaccine. I think I'm getting more credit than I deserve, Parton told USA Today in 2021. But I was just so happy to be a small part, to plant a seed that would grow into something bigger. My heart always guides me and leads me. The 11-time Grammy winner long embraced her big hair and voluptuous figure, and she spoke proudly and candidly about her cosmetic procedures. If you need a nip and tuck, find the good doctors. But I've outlived so many plastic surgeons, kind of hard to try to find the right ones, Parton joked to USA Today. There's a lot of maintenance, she continued. My joke of it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. That's so true, because I like to look a certain way. I can't just put on a little bit of makeup and think I look good, because I don't look good with a little bit of makeup. I like to wear a lot. Fits my personality. Even if somebody says, "Oh, God, she was so overmade," well, if it fits me, I'm going to make everybody around me happy, because I'm going to feel good myself. She came from humble beginnings in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, growing up in a one-room cabin with 11 siblings and a coat of many colors that her mother sewed together from fabric scraps, which inspired the name of a song and album. She learned the importance of dreaming big from a young age. I was silly enough to believe it could be done, and I didn't know it couldn't be done until I did it, as they say. I'd worked in the fields, being a country girl, and I've done all the menial labor because that was just the chores and stuff we had to do back home. But I hated every minute of it. I didn't like school either. When she moved to Nashville after high school to pursue music, I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? Parton said. I can always go back home, study to be a beautician, and still get cheap makeup and bleach and all the stuff that I was going to do always, no matter what. Parton once said that there was a concern her 1977 single, Here You Come Again, would be too pop for her country fans. But to her surprise, that was my first main-selling record, Parton recalled to USA Today. Everybody said I was making a mistake, so I was just praying, Lord, please don't let me be a flop. Let me have a hit record. And the Lord was good. That was really my big start toward a bigger career. Jolene is another of her most enduring songs. The 1973 country hit was inspired by a red-headed bank teller whom she thought had flirted with Parton's husband, Carl. I saw her recently, and she was big as a barn, Parton joked to USA Today. It wasn't as severe as I made the song. I was just a little jealous that she was prettier than me. So you always feel a little threatened when that happens. But it was not a big deal. It was just good for a song. Let's put it that way. And I was only joking about seeing her.
From the Lifeline, they said, what? The Star's best quotes. You chose this. Every day you could have opted out of this before it got unmanageably big. And I decided not to because I love that much. I love it that much. Taylor Swift in conversation with the Recording Academy discussing her songwriting process, handling criticism, and coping mechanisms when her career feels overwhelming. Noting that making music is not the path to universal validation, Swift joked that when people are mocking me, it's really fun to mock them back, sometimes using words that they have to look up. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, August 27th, 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes